Not guilty. Karen Reed off the hook for the murder of her cop boyfriend, but she didn't get away scot-free. Plus, the Supreme Court decided a major case on transgender care for minors. We have the details. And run it up the flagpole, a massive new addition to the front lawn of the White House. Those stories and more today. It's Thursday, Juneteenth. I'm Caitlin Becker, and this is the New York Postcast. First up, the battle between Israel and Iran rages on as the whole world sits and waits to see what the U.S. will do. President Trump telling reporters in the Oval Office Wednesday that, quote, "You have to do what you have to do, and maybe we don't have to fight." Meanwhile, the war of words continues. Iran's supreme leader has resorted to name-calling, sniping that President Trump is a, quote, has-been warmonger, as Trump told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to keep going with the attacks. And he added that it's just too late to restart nuclear talks. And while President Trump mulls things over, flight trackers made an interesting and possibly ominous discovery. An E-4B night watch. Now, if that doesn't automatically get your attention, how about this? It's also called a doomsday plane. The aircraft is designed to keep our U.S. government functioning and operating during nuclear war, and it was spotted taking a long looping flight from Louisiana to Andrews Air Force Base, which is, of course, the home of Air Force One and the presidential fleet. Now to the Supreme Court. SCOTUS upholding a ban on transgender treatment for minors, 6-3. Chief Justice John Roberts authored the opinion saying that this Tennessee law doesn't violate the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause. Roberts was backed by the 5 conservative justices. The 3 liberals dissented. Roberts rejected arguments that the law discriminated against transgender individuals, noting in the opinion that those 18 and older are still able to receive such treatments. Justice Sonia Sotomayor read her dissent from the bench, saying in part, quote, "The court abandons transgender children and their families to political whims. In sadness, I dissent." Now, this decision could have far-reaching effects. 26 other states have enacted laws that put some sort of limit on youth access to gender-affirming care. Moving over to the Vatican. He's been called the American Pope, the Sports Pope, and now the Digital Pope. Pope Leo XIV has a thing or two to say about AI. The pontiff warning a room full of cardinals that AI poses, quote, challenges to human dignity, justice, and labor. Now, the comments were delivered last month and first reported by the Wall Street Journal on Wednesday. Now, the news comes as a lot of AI-focused companies like IBM and Anthropic are in the Vatican this week for a summit on the ethics of AI technology. When we think of popes, we usually don't think of the papa with the smartphone, but this pope's focus on this issue shouldn't be too surprising. He chose his papal name as a nod to Pope Leo XIII, who led the church during the first upheaval of the Industrial Revolution. Now, church washers believe that today's Leo, or current Leo, is positioning himself as a yin to big tech's yang. Now to our big story, not guilty. After 2 trials, the nightmare is over for Karen Reed. A Massachusetts jury found Reed not guilty of killing her Boston police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe. This was the second time Reed was tried for murder. Her first trial ended in a hung jury. Here's Karen outside of court.
I could not be standing here without these amazing supporters who have supported me and my team financially and, more importantly, emotionally for almost 4 years. And the second thing I want to say is no one has fought harder for justice for John O'Keefe than I have.
That's actually Karen's supporters that you hear in the background screaming. Now, back in 2022, O'Keefe's body was found nearly frozen in a blizzard outside of the home of a fellow police officer. Prosecutors believed a drunken Karen Reed had argued with John O'Keefe while driving to a house party, and that she was so pissed that she mowed him down in the driveway and left him for dead. The defense didn't buy it. Their narrative? Karen was framed. Reed's side presented evidence that O'Keefe was beaten inside of the house and then discarded in the snow, telling jurors that the boys in blue protected one of their own and they set Karen up to take the fall. Now, Karen Reed was facing charges of second-degree murder, vehicular manslaughter while under the influence, and then leaving the scene. The jury acquitted her of all of the serious charges, but they did convict her of driving under the influence. Now, Reed didn't take the stand. Jurors still got to hear from her in her own words. Karen Reed is a talker, especially to reporters, and prosecutors tried to use that to their advantage, playing video clips from the media where she flat out admitted to drinking and driving that night. So I spoke with New York Post reporter David Proper to get some context on what kind of impact those clips had.
The fact that the jury was able to hear from her, but in a more, controlled manner where, she didn't have to take the stand. She didn't have to worry about the unpredictability of the prosecutors cross-examining her. She had a bit of control, where in some ways she kind of told her bit of the story. And while that is a gamble, it seems like it turned out pretty well for her.
Karen Reed got a slap on the wrist for that operation under the influence conviction, and she's going to serve a year of probation. Now, a sad story from our friends at Page Six. We're getting new details into the final moments of celebrity chef Anne Burells' life. The Food Network star died at her Brooklyn home on Tuesday. Authorities tell Page Six that a 911 caller claimed that Burrell was suffering from cardiac arrest. But by the time first responders got on the scene, the 55-year-old was already dead. Now, police say an investigation is ongoing. Burrell is survived by her husband, Stuart Claxton, and her stepson, Javier. And finally today, President Trump is celebrating the end of a $100,000 personal project, installing two really big flagpoles at the White House for two really big flags. The nearly 100-foot-tall poles now flank the north and south lawns of the White House. At $50K a pop, the poles are a gift from President Trump, who paid for them out of pocket. Next up, the president is setting his sights on building a kind of Mar-a-Lago-style ballroom at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. We have apparently entered the nesting stage of presidencies. I didn't even know that existed. If you ever want to get me a gift, please don't make it a flagpole. That is it for today. For more on these stories and everything else you could possibly want to know, check out the New York Post in print or online. And don't forget, like and subscribe to the New York Postcast, wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Promise you won't regret it.